Gravedigger, a Dave Brandstetter mystery, Book 6. Author, Joseph Hansen. Publisher, Open Road Integrated Media, New York. Narrator, Eric Aust. Chapter 3. So he's missing, Salazar said. He dealt with homicides for the L.A. County Sheriff's Office. Dark-haired, honey-colored, handsome. He looked sick today. Sallow. His still desk was heaped with files and photographs and forms. The photographs had ugly subjects. What Dave could see of them. Does his family want him back? Nobody's worried about him but me, Dave said. Signs of foul play. Salazar drank coffee that steamed in a styrofoam cup. It burned his beautiful mouth. He breathed a little puff of steam. Jesus, he said, and pawed for his cigarette pack among the papers. It was empty, and he crumpled it. Dave held out his pack, and when Salazar took a cigarette, lit it for him with a slim steel lighter. He lit a cigarette for himself. Salazar turned in his chair to look out at the cold blue sky. You have any real reason to think he's dead inside the house? He expected money, Dave said. Go look and see. His car there? Salazar tried the coffee again, cautiously, this time eyeing Dave over the rim. Did you check the garage? It's empty, Dave said. The mailbox is full. Down the hall, a man began to curse in Spanish. So he went someplace, Salazar said, and didn't come back. Salazar's office was one of a row of cubicles that looked through plate glass at a broad room where fluorescent light fell cold on desks, where telephones kept ringing, and at some of which men typed or leaned back in chairs, talking to other men who stood holding papers. Or the men at the desk talked into the insistent phones. They frowned and made notes on pads with pencils, on ballpoint pens. Now Salazar looked past Dave, out into that room. A scuffle was going on out there. The Spanish curses were louder now, and there were shouts from the English speakers. Furniture slammed. There was a crash. Dave turned to look. Far off across the big room, where everyone was now standing up to watch, two men in neat jackets and short haircuts were struggling with a fat, brown-skinned boy whose hair was long and held by a rolled bandana. They all three fell to the floor and were hidden from view by desks. Some of the men from the desks headed for the fight. Salazar said to Dave, I could check to see if he's turned up dead after an accident. What kind of car was it? Do you know? He reached for his telephone. Dave shook his head. Have you got a phone book that covers that area? Salazar had the book, stacked with others on the floor. He crouched for it, slipped it out of the stack, wiped dust off its slumped spine with his hand, laid it in front of Dave. Dave steadied him. He was sweating and breathing hard. You're sick, he said. Should you even be here? Salazar sat down, making a face of disgust. Fucking flu, he said. Had it since Christmas. Makes you weak. I'm all right. He wiped the film of sweat off his face with tissues from a torn flower-patterned box. Almost empty. He nodded at the directory. You're gonna call somebody. Dave flopped open the book. In the big outer room, the fat brown boy stopped cursing in Spanish and began snarling like an animal. Metal furniture crashed again. Dave turned to look. A file cabinet lay on its side, spewing paper. 6 men loaded the brown boy out of the room like a captive beast. Dave blinked at Salazar. PCP, Salazar said. It takes them that way. Dave located the name Decker and found a Decker paired with Sandpiper Lane in a gray column on a gray page. He punched for an outside line. He punched the Decker number. Scotty had not gone to school. He told Dave what Dave asked to him. No. Dave thanked him, hung up, and passed the phone to Salazar. It's a Rolls. late 60s. Four-door hardtop, two-tone, brown and gold. Westover is 5'10". Hazel eyes, brown hair, beginning to thin on top at the back. No extra weight. Maybe 140. Lately, he didn't always remember to shave. Salazar held the receiver to his ear. He punched the phone buttons with the rubber end of a yellow pencil. He asked Dave, "Marks or scars?" "The tip of one ear is missing. The informant doesn't remember which ear. He's just a neighbor kid." Salazar relayed Westover's description to someone in an office who had to do with keeping track of unidentified corpses. None of the unidentified corpses on hand fitted the description. Salazar tried another number and told someone about the rolls. He waited a long time. Receiver trapped at his ear by his shoulder, drank coffee, finished his cigarette, snubbed out the cigarette in a square glass ashtray heaped with short, yellow-stained butts. He said, "Yes," into the receiver, listened some more, grunted, "Thanks," and replaced the receiver. "No abandoned or smashed up Rollses, either," he said. "Because it isn't in the garage," Dave said, "doesn't have to mean Westover drove it. A car like that? Why didn't somebody steal it? The garage is padlocked, but that doesn't signify. He could be in the house, tied up and gagged. He could be in there murdered. It's an expensive house in an expensive neighborhood. Why didn't somebody break in, kill him, plunder the place, and steal the car?" "Because that's not the obvious explanation," Salazar said. "The obvious explanation is that the man has huge debts he can't pay. He was grabbing at straws, trying to defraud your insurance company. When it didn't pay off right away, he packed up and cleared out." "His son disappeared at the same time," Dave said. 18, 19, name of Lyle, music student. "What are you saying now?" Salazar asked. "That the son killed him and drove off with the family car?" "Off the record?" Dave said. "No. But if I said yes, for the record, would you send a team out there?" "Look at this mess." Salazar picked up and dropped the loose stack of files, papers, photographs on his desk. One of the photographs slid to the floor on Dave's side. He bent and picked it up. A middle-aged black in a Hawaiian shirt lay in a leakage of blood by a back-alley trash module. Dave laid the photo on the desk. The black's bulging eyes stared at him. He looked as if the last thing he could imagine was being dead. Salazar said, "We had 1,532 homicides in this country in the last 8 months." He tried to straighten the papers. "You haven't even got a crime. Why won't Westover be back tomorrow? Why won't the kid? Have you got another cigarette?" Dave gave him another cigarette. Romano's was crowded for lunch. It was dark after the sun glare of the street, and inside the door he blundered against backs and elbows. The bar at the front was small. Couldn't hold a lot of patrons and latecomers waiting for tables. Had to stand out here by the reservation desk with their drinks. If they'd been so lucky as to get drinks. Narrowing his eyes, trying to adjust them to the lack of light, Dave looked for Mel Flisher. Mel was late too. Dave excused himself and edged between the drinkers, hoping Amanda had got here on time. Max Romano would have held the corner table for Dave forever, but David finally talked him out of that. Dave's showing up was too often chancy. It wasn't fair to the hungry. It wasn't fair to Max. Today, everything was all right, because Amanda was there in a nubby, natural world thing. Bright blue scarf knotted at her throat, a puffed-up mockery of a 1920s boy's cap, oatmeal color, tilted on her neat little skull. She had a tall margarita for herself and a smile for him. A young man sat with her, a stranger to Dave. Amanda seemed pleased with him. She said, "Dave Brandstetter, Miles Edwards." Edwards rose and was tall. He shook Dave's hand firmly, smiled with handsome teeth. claimed it was nice to meet Dave, and sat down again. He wore a suit that looked expensive. Without making an issue of it, his dark hair and trim black beard and mustache, his long, dense, dark, childlike lashes, contrasted with the pale gray of his eyes. He was tanned, except where dark glasses had kept the sun from his skin. Amanda studied Dave. "You look tired and not happy." The chairs were barrel type and crushed black velvet. Dave sank into his with a sigh. "This case is not a case like any case I have ever had before. And nobody is helping me. Almost nobody." "Take heart." Amanda offered him a cigarette, one of the long, slim, brown kind. "Remember the little red hen?" She lit the cigarette for him, then sat straight and waved into the candle shadows. "Glenlivet, please. Double on the rocks." "And that car," Dave said. "You and I should never shop together. My tendency to impulse buying is bad enough without you backing me up. That car is a bone cracker." "What kind of car?" Edward said. "TR," Dave said. "It had to be small to get into my driveway." To Amanda, "Does he know about my driveway?" "There's no way to describe it," she said. "Where have you been? A long way?" "Up the coast, beyond Zuma," Dave said. "Back to a nursery school in West L.A., downtown to the sheriff's, then out the freeway to Hollywood. And you? It's like riding in a dice coupe." "What car should we have gotten?" she said. "That big brown Jaguar." "But the driveway," she said. "I'll hire a bulldozer. I'll change the driveway." "Also, you wanted to save gas," she said. "No, I want to save me," he said. Max Romano himself, plump, his few remaining black curls plastered across his bald dome, brought the Glenlivet squat glass. Much whiskey, little ice. The way Dave liked it. "Thanks, Max." "You look pale." Max handed menus to Amanda and Edwards. Dave waved his away. Max frowned. "Are you sick?" "Not hungry," Dave said. Usually he liked the thick garlic and cheese smells of Romano's, but this noon they made him feel a little queasy. "I'm all right, Max, just bad-tempered. I got up too early. Ruins the whole day." "Something light on the stomach," Max suggested. "A fluffy little omelet." He wiggled fat fingers to indicate delicacy. "With mozzarella." Dave winced. "Maybe later. We'll see." Max went off, shaking his head, face puckered with worry. Dave told Edwards, "One person you never missed around Max is your mother." "You never had one," Amanda said. "I had 9, Dave said, in rapid succession. "But you're the nicest." "Known Max a long time," Edward said. "Since before you were born," Dave said. He took in some whiskey and lit another of Amanda's cigarettes. "And while I was sitting here boozing with dead friends and lovers." "What were you doing with those 34 years? Edwards grinned. "Only 30, he said. "I'm a lawyer. Entertainment, personalities, TV, pictures." "Would you believe?" Amanda said. She meant that he looked like a film star. That didn't surprise Dave. Carl Brandstetter had looked like a film star, too. But Carl Brandstetter had been 65 when Amanda married him. So what surprised Dave was Edward's youth. He was still older than Amanda, but not much. It was only a surprise. It wasn't important. What was important was that he earned a living, and probably a good one. He wasn't after Amanda for her money. Dave wasn't only old enough to be Amanda's father. He worried about her like a father, the way she had moped around that big empty Beverly Glen house after Carl Brandstedter's sudden death had troubled him, and he tried to take her mind off her loss by putting her to work, remodeling and decorating the ramshackle place he'd bought to live alone in up Horseshoe Canyon. When that was done, he'd talked her into opening a business, and in no time, she'd got more clients than she could handle, and was too busy to mourn. But he was uneasy that she seemed to shun all men except him, an aging homosexual. Now here she came with a man, and Dave was jealous. Ridiculous. He laughed at himself. "Dave," Amanda's eyes were bright, "we've got something to tell you." But Mel Flesher arrived, tall, balding, patrician, in dark green tweed lavender shirt, pale green tie. He was a heavy contributor to the Philharmonic, and the museum collected California painters, and was a senior vice president of Proctor Bank. He and Dave had been lovers, though that was a flowery word for it, in high school, when the world was young. They had remained friends. Trailing Male came Makoto, the Japanese college boy he slept with. Stocky, broad-faced, a shiny red jacket was open over his muscular brown torso. He wore red jogging shorts, white gym socks with red trim, and no shoes. Roller skates dangled from his square brown hand, white tops, red wheels. From across the room, Max watched Makoto with a sad shake of the head, wanting a restaurant dress code long defunct. Dave made introductions. Makoto sat down, dropped the skates on the thick carpet, lounged in the chair. Mel sat straight, a Renaissance cardinal holding audience. Amanda told Makoto, "Those are beautiful skates." Makoto nodded, a head of shaggy black hair, and showed terrific teeth. He didn't talk much. Spoken English was not easy for him. Amanda handed him her menu. Edwards tried to give his to Mel. Mel smiled and shook his head. "Scallops," he said. "They saute them beautifully here. And brown butter." He passed Dave an envelope. "The sad story of Charles Westover. Financial only. But I often think a good novelist could reconstruct a whole life from a study of a man's bank statements, don't you?" "Balzac," Makoto said. He pronounced it Balzac. "Cesar Berlateau." The last name was easy for him. Dave put on glasses and peered at the pages from the envelope. "Credit check here. 2. Thanks. I see he's keeping up the house payments." "Jesus! A third mortgage?" "He'd better. But as you can see, his debts elsewhere are staggering, and around figures $200,000. The house and car are all he has." Amanda said. Dave laid down the papers and took off the glasses. She was holding Edward's hand on the table, and she was radiant. "I have an announcement. Please, Miles and I are getting married." "Whoo!" Dave was startled. She never kept a secret before. "Wonderful! Congratulations!" He kissed her cheek and shook the hand of Edwards, who grinned happily. "Champagne!" Mel waved his arms. "Champagne!" Gay Mysteries audiobooks. I think it is easy to hate a label, but a face humanizes the word. So this effort is twofold: to offer comfort to those like myself that your world didn't end because you don't fit into the view of acceptable society on both sides, and in hopes of helping those with family that are LGBTQ, that it doesn't mean we are aliens from the child they once knew. Reassure them so they can maybe be supportive at the same time, being true to their values.